Welcome back to Clark's Ring Rants. Let's get straight into today's video. So Nayoa Inoue beats Junto Nakatani via 12-round unanimous decision at the Tokyo Dome over in Japan to retain his undisputed Super Bantamweight world title. Let's talk about it. Coming into this fight, you had pound-for-pound knockout specialist Naoya Inoue. He's a 4-weight world champion. He's currently undisputed at Super Bantamweight. He's been beating everyone. No one can really give him a challenge. And then you had Junto Nakatani, a fellow Japanese fighter, a 3-weight world champion, stepping up to Super Bantamweight. And some people, although a small minority, thought maybe he can be the guy to finally beat Inoue. We know Inoue, he's been vulnerable in a few fights, even though he's come through them to win. He's been dropped a couple of times by the likes of Luis Nere. And maybe Nakatani, southpaw stance, long arms, long reach, a little bit taller than him. It could give him some problems and cause the upset. I certainly thought that. I had Nakatani to win on my bet, so he completely ruined my weekend. But nevertheless, let's talk about the fight. So it started off, both men were really cautious in the first few rounds. They were sort of circling round. They had really wide stances. They were a bit twitchy with the movements. None of them really wanted to commit to anything too serious because they knew if they missed, they were going to be made to pay for it. Nayoa Inoue started to get on top. He was avoiding any big shots. He was going to the body. He started to touch Nakatani up a bit and he built up a lead, although it was hardly Hagler Hearns in the first few rounds. In fact, I'd probably go as far as to say the first half of the fight was a pretty dull affair. Neither really wanted to engage too much, but Inoue was doing enough to win the rounds, and if you ask me, he'd built up a bit of a lead by the halfway stage. Now, it wasn't until the second half of the fight that Nakatani really started to actually believe he could beat Inoue, and he started to pressure the action a little bit. He started to hit him with some nice counters. His right hook round the side of the guard was a really good punch for him throughout the fight, and he started to work his way back into it and make it a little bit more competitive, and he started to get my attention. I'll be honest, I was falling asleep. It was really late here when the fight was on, but then I remembered, oh no, got some money on this fight. Come on, Nakatani, pull your finger out, show me something. And he made a go of it. I think it was round 8 and round 9 were big rounds for Nakatani. He really started to use his size, his height, his reach. He was pushing Inoue back. He caused him some problems and he wobbled Inoue. He hit him with some very, very good shots in there. And I thought, you know what? This could be close down the stretch. Maybe Nakatani can take over and win. But Inoue did what all great champions do. He turned it on in those championship rounds. He found another gear. It reminded me of Alexander Usyk in the Anthony Joshua rematch. He had a torrid time in that 9th round in that fight. If you can remember Usyk, Joshua looked like he was starting to get to him. But then Alexander Usyk came out for the 10th round like a true champion and pinged Joshua all round the ring, took over the fight and won those championship rounds. Nayoa Inoue did something similar last night in the championship rounds. He really set about Nakatani. He stuck it on him. He visibly hurt him. There was a cut Nakatani was struggling to see, and Nayoa Inoue capitalised on that. He pushed him back. He bullied him around the ring. He hit him with some big shots to head and body, and he won the fight in the end. Nayoa Inoue, he retained his undisputed title. I think that's 26 world title fight victories now for Nayoa Inoue, which is an absolutely astonishing achievement. I think he's got a few more. I think it's 6 he needs to beat Julio Cesar Chavez's record. And if he could get that, wow, that would be some feat. He's already cemented his place as the greatest Japanese boxer of all time. You could argue he's up there with Manny Pacquiao as the greatest Asian boxer of all time. He really is a once-in-a-generation fighter. What really impressed me tonight about Nayoa Inoue, he's not as fast, he's not as explosive as he used to be when he was a bit younger, but the boxing skills are absolutely sublime. His distance control, his range, his foot speed, his foot movements, his feints, the way he was just making Nakatani miss. Those big left hands were just sailing by Inoue's face by a whisker. The mark of a fighter with brilliant distance and range control is the fact that they're able to make their opponent miss, but they don't even need to move their feet. They're always in punching range. Inoue, he always had his feet under him. He was always ready to fire back if Nakatani overextended, and he made him pay throughout the course of the fight. Now, although Inoue won, and he did win convincingly, in my eyes, there's no argument for Nakatani winning this fight. I do think Nakatani will have some regrets after this fight. I feel if he'd have started a bit quicker, he'd have had a bit more self-belief in himself to win this fight. He could have made it a lot more closer and competitive than it actually was. You often saw Nakatani smiling, laughing, been a bit too pally with Inoue for my liking in this fight. I'd like to have seen a bit more grit, a bit more determination. You know, a bit like Benavidez, who also fought against someone he's familiar with in Zurdo. He didn't care. They weren't friends. He wanted to take his head off. And I think if Nakatani could have channeled some of that energy, he could have made this fight a lot closer than it actually was. But he still put up a valiant effort. He's done better than nearly 99% of Inoue's past opponents. I just think he'll go away with some regrets thinking he could have been a bit more aggressive in there. But what does Inoue do next? Who does he take on? I'd like to see him move up to featherweight and try to claim a world title there. He's cleaned out bantamweight. There's not really much for him to stick down there and do. I mean, he could rematch Nakatani, but he's just beaten him fair and square pretty comfortably and convincingly. I don't really have any interest in seeing that rematch. If Bam Rodriguez is to win his next fight and come up to Super Bantamweight, deal me in, sign me up for that fight. That's a really, really interesting fight. I think Bam could be one of only a few people that could cause him problems. But otherwise, I'd like to see him move up to featherweight. You know, we've got the likes of Bruce Carrington up there. We've got Brandon Figueroa, who just flattened Nick Ball a few months ago. There's some good fights up there, and it's a chance for him to become a 5-weight world champion before he calls it a day. But as long as he's here, I think we should all appreciate Naoya Inoue for the generational talent and all-time great that he is. But what do you think, guys? Let me know in the comments below. Who should Naoya Inoue take on next? He's beaten his Japanese rival Nakatani comfortably last night. What next? Stay at Super Bantamweight, up to featherweight. Who knows? Let me know your thoughts. Don't forget to like this video, share, subscribe if you're new. I'll see you on the next one. Peace out.